The crossing of horse troops in the Brazilian Pantanal is one of the most emblematic and representative experiences of Pantanal culture. This type of movement is not just a simple transportation journey, but rather a tradition that reflects the intrinsic relationship between man, horse, and the vast flooded plain that is the Pantanal. It is an environment that imposes unique challenges, and those who live and work in it need to deeply understand the natural cycles, the physics of the terrain, and the behavior of the animals that inhabit it. The crossing is much more than a mere movement of horses. It is a practice that involves meticulous planning, a strong bond between man and animal, and a deep knowledge of the environment, its variations, and the complexities it offers. It all begins with the dawn, when the sky is still shrouded in thick fog, a common sight in the Pantanal region. As the light of the sun rises, the scene transforms and begins to take its true form. The heat of the day starts to take over the vast plain, but in the early morning, the cool breeze still seems to offer relief to all those preparing for the long journey. In the fields, the pantaneiros, men and women who know the Pantanal like the back of their hands, begin their preparations. The first step is always the most careful. The horses. These animals, essential for the crossings, require meticulous care. Checking their health, adjusting the saddles, changing horseshoes, and providing adequate feed are all crucial steps to ensure the journey will be successful. Pantanal horses, many of them of Pantaneira breed, are adapted to survive under adverse conditions, which makes them ideal companions for these travels. They are known for their endurance and strength, qualities necessary to traverse rough terrain and treacherous waters, as well as withstand the extreme heat or torrential rains that may mark the crossing, depending on the season. For the pantaneiros, each horse has its own personality. Some are calmer and easier to control, while others may be more nervous or impulsive. Knowing each one of them is essential for a successful drive. And this knowledge comes from daily interaction with the animals, which are raised and treated with great respect and dedication from a young age. For the pantaneiro, a good horse is not just a working animal but a true companion for the journey. The route the troop will follow depends on many factors, and one of the most important is the careful observation of the environment. The Pantanal, although one of the most beautiful and biodiverse regions in the world, is also a place full of dangers and unpredictabilities. The water levels, which rise and fall with the seasons, are one of the most critical factors to consider. During the flood season, for example, the vastness of the Pantanal changes. The water takes over large areas, and the crossing, already difficult, becomes an even greater challenge. The dry trails are now submerged, and the Pantanal transforms into a giant sea of water with scattered islands. In these conditions, the horses must cross rivers and lakes, sometimes swimming for long distances. The experienced pantaneiro knows how to read the water. What seems to be a shallow area can hide a deep hole, or a sandbank can be just the tip of a submerged log. These nuances, which could go unnoticed by the inexperienced, are interpreted precisely by the pantaneiros. They know the terrain and know where the horses can advance safely. During the flood season, pantaneiros must be even more vigilant because the risks of accidents increase. It is in this scenario that the true skill of the pantaneiro is put to the test. Each pantaneiro must guide his troop with care and confidence because a simple mistake can result in disaster, whether the loss of a horse or, more seriously, the breaking of the troop formation. In addition to the natural dangers of the Pantanal, which include not only natural obstacles such as fallen trees, submerged logs, but also wild animals, the crossing demands a great ability to adapt. During the crossing, the horses become more than mere transporters of people and goods. They become true survivors, navigating through waters, crossing flooded areas, and facing the elements. Sometimes, it is necessary to set up temporary camps, either to rest or to address any issues that arise during the journey. In these moments, the pantaneiro's knowledge of local plants and the region's fauna becomes even more important. If a horse gets injured, for instance, the pantaneiro will quickly identify the best plan for treatment, either to relieve pain or prevent infection. During the crossing, the pantaneiros also face other challenges. The emotional instability of the animals is a constant concern. The presence of alligators, jaguars, and even suquaranas can make the horses nervous, requiring a great deal of control from the riders. The horse is an animal that reacts strongly to environmental stimuli, and the behavior of an entire troop can change drastically if just one horse becomes frightened. Jaguars, for example, are masters of camouflage, and their presence may be felt long before they are seen. The growl of the jaguars and the noise they make moving through the vegetation can be frightening for both the horses and the pantaneiros themselves. In addition to mastering the techniques of navigation and animal control, the Pantaneiro must be a good observer. The sky, the vegetation, and even the behavior of the horses offer valuable clues about the path to follow and the dangers ahead. For example, when a horse starts to become agitated, it is possible to tell that something unusual is in the area, such as the presence of a predator or the approach of a storm. This kind of sharp perception is what separates a skilled Pantaneiro from a novice. The crossing requires a perfect balance between knowledge, physical skills, and a great deal of patience. The Pantanal environment, with its vast flooded areas and plains, can be both beautiful and inhospitable. When the dry season arrives, the terrain changes completely. The waters recede, revealing cracked and parched land where vegetation that once seemed dense is now scattered and weakened. The land becomes barren, and distances seem to expand, which increases the challenge of the crossing. The intense heat is an additional obstacle, and the horses need frequent rest to avoid exhaustion. Every Pantaneiro is experienced enough to know when to stop and rest and when to continue the journey. The breaks are crucial to ensure that both the horses and the riders stay in good physical condition. When the troop finally reaches its destination, whether to sell cattle, transport goods, or take the animals to the pasture, there is a sense of accomplishment. For the Pantaneiros, these crossings are more than a task. They represent the continuity of a way of life passed down from generation to generation. Each crossing is a ritual, a demonstration of strength, wisdom, and endurance. Pantaneiro families have a deep connection with the land and the traditions it provides. During these long journeys, the bond between the members of the troop and their horses is strengthened. The horses, in turn, demonstrate an intimate knowledge of their riders, reacting intuitively to commands and adjusting to the rhythm of the journey. The Pantanal continues to be one of the most incredible and wild places in the world, where life and death meet at every step. During the crossing, the contact with nature is absolute, and the Pantaneiros, with their wisdom acquired over a lifetime, represent a link between man and this wild environment. It is not just a physical journey but also a spiritual and cultural one, a rite of passage that is lived and deeply felt by all who face it. The crossing of horse troops in the Pantanal is a reflection of the history and traditions of a people. It is a practice that represents the connection between man and the land, the ability to live in harmony with natural cycles, and resilience in the face of challenges. Each crossing is a test of endurance, and every horse that reaches its destination carries not only the weight of its load but also the weight of an entire culture. The Pantanal remains one of the world's greatest natural treasures, and the crossing of horse troops is one of the pillars that sustain the history of this magical land.